Smartphones are an integral part of our lives. But what effect does all this scrolling and staring have on our brains? What can we do to protect ourselves and our children? Here's what we know. Smartphones may affect how we think. Although there is not yet clear evidence that smartphones have a long-term negative effect on the brain, health experts are concerned that excessive use can be harmful, especially to children whose brains are not yet fully developed. For example, research has shown that smartphones may adversely affect cognition, but more study is needed to understand the connection. Cognition is the process of acquiring and applying knowledge through thought, experience, and the senses. A study in the Journal of the Association for Consumer Research found that cognitive capacity was significantly reduced whenever a smartphone is within reach, even when the phone is off. With smartphones, you no longer need to memorize a phone number or find your way around town using a map. Your smartphone does these things for you. Research shows this over-reliance on your phone can lead to mental laziness. Modern connectedness could also be rewiring our brains to constantly crave instant gratification. One recent report found that adults in the U.S. check their phones, on average, 344 times a day, once every 4 minutes, and spend almost 3 hours a day on their devices in total. The problem for many of us is that one quick phone-related task leads to a quick check of our email or social media feeds, and suddenly we've been sucked into endless scrolling. It's a vicious circle. The more useful our phones become, the more we use them. The more we use them, the more we lay neural pathways in our brains that lead to picking up our phones for whatever task is at hand, and the more we feel an urge to check our phones even when we don't have to. Worries about specific aspects of our hyper-connected world, like social media and its increasingly hyper-realistic beauty filters, aside, what is our reliance on these devices doing to our brains? Is it all bad for us, or are there also some upsides? As you might expect, with our societal dependence on devices increasing rapidly every year, the research struggles to keep up. What we do know is that the simple distraction of checking a phone or seeing a notification can have negative consequences. This isn't very surprising. We know that in general, multitasking impairs memory and performance. One of the most dangerous examples is phone use while driving. One study found that merely speaking on the phone, not texting, was enough to make drivers slower to react on the road. It's true for everyday tasks that are less high stakes too. Simply hearing a notification ding made participants of another study perform far worse on a task, almost as badly as participants who were speaking or texting on the phone during the task. In one recent study, for example, researchers asked participants to either put their phones next to them so they were visible, like on a desk, nearby and out of sight, like in a bag or pocket, or in another room. Participants then completed a series of tasks to test their abilities to process and remember information, their problem solving, and their focus. They were found to perform far better when their phones were in another room instead of nearby, whether visible, powered on, or not. That held true even though most of the participants claimed not to be consciously thinking about their devices. Individuals who think that our brains have limited resources, such as that resisting one temptation makes it harder to resist the next, are indeed more likely to exhibit this phenomenon in testing. But for those who think that the more we resist temptation, the more we're strengthening the capacity to keep resisting temptation, that our brains, in other words, have unlimited resources. Exerting self-control or mental fatigue on one task doesn't negatively affect their performance on the next one. More fascinatingly still, whether we have a limited or non-limited view of the brain may be largely cultural, and Western countries like the U.S. may be more likely to think the mind is limited compared to other cultures, such as India. What am I taking from this? To cut down on mindless reaching for my phone, I'll keep practicing leaving it in another room. But I'll also remind myself that my brain has more resources than I think. And that each time I resist the temptation to check my phone, I'm laying down new neural pathways that will make it easier and easier to resist that temptation, and perhaps others as well in the future.